How did the first people reach the Americas? It almost sounds like a silly question, but the more you think about it, it makes you wonder. Wait, so yeah, how did they get here? In this video, I will be covering different migration theories on the arrival of the first Americans. This regards to pre-Clovis and Clovis times, or the first few major colonization episodes that occurred. Let's begin with the original theory that is associated with the Clovis first hypothesis. The Beringian mid-continental route proposes that people moved south from eastern Beringia through central Canada east of the Western Mountains. It is thought that southward migration could not have been possible until the glaciers melted enough to allow the people to move southward sometime between 11,000 to 12,000 years ago. During this time, it was thought that a narrow strip, ice-free corridor was formed, making a pathway leading southward free from walls of ice. This unglaciated land is thought to have existed between the Laurentide and Cordilleran ice sheets. For many years, these ice sheets were joined together, then a brief event happened. When the ice melted, it formed a narrow strip corridor that allowed plants, animals, and humans to migrate north to south and vice versa. The time frame fits in well with the colonization of the Clovis culture. By about 11,000 years ago, the glaciers had melted enough to be considered a deglaciated corridor between the Laurentide and Cordilleran ice sheets. The interior migration route proposes that it was a hunter-gatherer-based economy that relied on hunting terrestrial mammals, gathering limited plants, and freshwater fishing. It has been thought and taught for a long time that according to the Clovis first model and the Beringia theory, portrays the first Americans as strictly bloodthirsty big-game hunters who got to America on foot by crossing the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia to Alaska. In this theory, they followed herds of big game, such as mammoths or mastodons, eventually implying that groups of humans are led into a vast, unpopulated, empty land, yet so full of many strange, unfamiliar beasts they never encountered before. Saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, camels, and giant short-faced bears have called this place home for many generations. People using watercraft, possibly skin boats similar to Inuit kayaks and umiaks, may have moved southward from Beringia along the Gulf of Alaska, and then southward along the northwest coast of North America, possibly as early as 16,000 years ago. This displaces the land bridge theory. This route would have enabled humans to enter southern areas of the Americas prior to the melting of the continental glaciers. Until the 1970s, most archaeologists did not think it was possible. They thought the glaciers extended through the Alaskan Peninsula and Gulf of Alaska as far south of the state of Washington. However, by 16,000 years ago, these areas were unglaciated. Canadian archaeologist Knut Fladmark theorized that people gradually colonized unglaciated areas along the continental shelf exposed by lower sea level. It is also thought that the greatest diversity among Native American languages occur along the west coast, suggesting that this region was inhabited the longest. The coastal hypothesis suggests an economy based on marine mammal hunting, saltwater fishing, shellfish gathering, and the use of watercraft. The coastal hypothesis is also associated with the Kelp Highway theory. The Kelp Highway is located along the Pacific rim of Northeast Asia and Beringia to as far south as South America. Kelp is an edible, nutritious seaweed that grows in cool, near-shore waters along rocky coastlines. Kelp forests also support a diverse array of marine life. The Kelp Highway provided top-notch gourmet dining for prehistoric man, such as mackerel, kelp bass, kelp fish, cute sea otters, sea lions, and sea mussels, etc. This was their grocery store. Instead of driving to the Red Lobsters down the street, they hopped on their boats and fetched themselves fast food. Literally, the prey they had to catch was fast. Anyone else craving seafood? The Kelp Highway theory is more accepted at this point due to the fact that the Pre-Clovis site of Monte Verde in central Chile's coast was marked by the presence of kelp in the hearths of the dwellings. This site is dated to as early as 18,000 years old. So some may ask, why isn't there more evidence and sites to prove the theory? Well, the answer to that is more simple than one may think. Sea levels rise. Much of the archaeological evidence would have been submerged underwater since the last glacial maximum, about 26,500 years ago. The most promising sites are out there just waiting to be discovered. The most controversial theory on the list is the Talochaco hypothesis. The Talochaco hypothesis is often rejected by most scholars. The theory suggests that the first people to migrate into North America came from Europe during the Talochacan period of the Upper Paleolithic around 20,000 years ago. It proposes that Europeans traveled along the glaciers and ice bridge of the Atlantic Ocean. This would have been a long, desolate journey of ice for over 1,600 miles. If this happened, these people would have had to live strictly on seafood. The idea was theorized by archaeologists Bruce Bradley and Dennis Stanford. They also believed that North American Clovis points are technological descendants of European Talochacan peoples. The motto used for the Talochacan hypothesis is Iberia, not Siberia. There is no genetic evidence that supports this idea. We would see European genomes present in Native Americans, but this is not the case. The Talochacan culture of Europe approximately 20,000 years ago is known for its unique style of stone points. They have a distinct leaf-shaped biface. The technique used was bifacial percussion flaking, in which Clovis points share this commonality. A flaked blade resembling a typical leaf-shaped Talochacan point was unearthed in Chesapeake Bay of the Atlantic Ocean in the United States, along with a mastodon skull. This is dated to 14,000 years ago or more. There is no conclusion to the finds of Chesapeake Bay due to its original context and origin being so far removed, which was discovered by a fisherman who pulled these finds from the water with a net. Although the blade shares resemblance to Talochacan points in Europe, it's good to note that paleo-natives had the ability to flint knap their own points, and it might just happen to be a coincidence they napped a similar tool in a different part of the world that was similar to the Talochacans of Europe. The trip to America from Iberia would not have been impossible, but was unlikely. There would need to be more research on this theory for sure. To conclude, there may have been different waves of colonization throughout within those thousands of years. There definitely wasn't one culture, but at least a few that came and went at different times. Before the colonization of the Clovis culture, populations were here in the Americas, but were sparse and scattered. The biggest group to populate the Americas was then the later culture of Clovis, 12,000 years ago, eventually giving rise to later cultures and populations to the Native Americans we have today. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, leave a comment, like, subscribe for more videos like this. I will catch you on the next one.